Welcome back to the Conclusion of the Matter podcast. This is Ryan Weaver with me today, which is typically the case, Ren Ferguson and Robbie Santiago. Thank you for tuning in. As Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verses 13 and 14, by the guidance of the Holy Spirit, this is the end of the matter. All hath been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every work into judgment with every hidden thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So that's where we get our podcast title from, even though that the ASV doesn't say the conclusion of the matter. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Robbie and let him get us started today.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
So today we're going to start a podcast on what we call lesser sins, or these are things that people may not consider to be very big deals. And so if there are other examples that we either don't go into enough or ones that you think of, then you can drop us a comment in the YouTube, or you can email us at the conclusion of the matter at yahoo.com, or just let us know some way or another, and we'd be happy to continue more of these. But these are just basically a few that Ren suggested to us, and Ryan and I agreed for whatever reason.
They were also, some of them, I know at least one of them was suggested by a listener. I'm not sure about the others.
So Ren/listeners suggested. So again, if there are others that you'd like us to hit on, then we'd be happy to do that in future podcasts as well. So just let us know about that. But figured we'd start with little white lies. And so obviously I think I wouldn't be unique in this, but people just tend to have a way of telling small lies, quote unquote small lies, sometimes to protect the feelings of another person, or to protect the feelings of themselves maybe, or just in general. And so a lot of people consider these lesser sins because you're doing things for the right motive to not be as sinful as other sins. And I think we as people kind of have a tendency to rank sins either way, even though God doesn't do it that way. We tend to rank, lies and things less than we do, like murder and other bad things like that.
Yeah, I think I went about this a little differently, because I think Jesus told Pilate that the one who betrayed him had the greater sin. I think there are, not that one sin is excusable by God, but I think there are tiers. There's in Luke chapter 12, it talks about different levels of punishment in a parable Jesus gave. I also think about when God gave the old law, some sins demanded death. Some sins demanded a lot less than death. So I think there were... So while each sin is something God doesn't want, it does feel like there are tiers. Not to say that they're okay to do. That's not what I'm trying to say.
I think a lot of times when we say that, what we're really meaning is any sin, regardless of what it may be, unrepented of,
is a separation.
Will lead to condemnation. So in that sense, they're all equal in that regard.
But even lying specifically, I had a couple of verses. I had Proverbs 12, verse 22, that says, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. And then we brought up Proverbs 6 several times, but a lying tongue is being one of the things.
And bearing false witness. And the same two lyings in the one passage there. So
exactly. So I think sometimes, even though there may be different
consequences,
more serious sins than others, we have to be careful that is in alignment with God's standard and not the standard that we as individuals or we as a society have kind of set for those things. So I think if we were to, I guess, poll or take account of society, most people in society would be fine with telling maybe even big lies. I don't know, but at least little white lies. Whereas God's word's pretty clear on lying, and that it is something that He hates.
Well, I was just going to say that's kind of why we call them white lies, is because we're recognizing that technically it is a lie, but also in our minds, it doesn't actually register as a true lie, what we think of as being a true lie, because it seems so insignificant that it doesn't really matter. But to your point, we have to evaluate these things based off of God's word and based off of how he views them and what he says about them, rather than the scale that we might apply to them.
Right. I read this, so this isn't something unique to me, but I'm not sure where I found it. It says, the world's view, white lies protect people's feelings, small lies are considered harmless, and convenience justifies a slight lie. Whereas in the biblical view, truth and biblical love builds relationships, small lies erode integrity, and faithfulness is measured by small acts, such as, quote, that will really, quote, being honest, but white lies.
I just thought about this, and this is on topic, okay? But I just thought about this old Geico commercial with Honest Abe.
Oh, yeah.
And his wife comes in and she's like, does this dress make me look fat? And he goes, well.
Perhaps a little. It is. So I know those, I don't know how many there were. I literally, one time when I was in college, sat down, there was like a compilation of all of the like 30-second Geico commercials. So it was probably a compilation of like 20 or 30 minutes long. And I just sat there and watched them all. I'm a little nostalgic, but also those were pretty good commercials.
Yeah, they were.
Even I remember they had one that was like, would like 10 pounds of flour make a really big biscuit or something like that? And it's got this kid like with a biscuit the size of like this table, basically. He's putting butter on it.
No longer on topic.
Yes.
Good job.
I take accountability. It was on topic, but then it was not.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to lying. You got anything on telling little white lies?
No, I think some people, going back to the, you talked about protecting someone's feelings. I've heard it, situational ethics. It's like if someone's life's in danger, and they've used Rahab as an example.
One that I would think about.
I get it. It doesn't mean Rahab was okay for lying. No. I think, could it been handled a different way? I think, God's providence could have protected. I don't know. Yeah. It's hard for me to set in that situation that I would have behaved differently, but I don't think it's okay. I don't think it's okay.
It doesn't mean that it wasn't sin just because of the circumstances.
Right.
And that's like one of my instructors at Memphis, when we were talking about Rahab, he put forth the hypothetical scenario where you are in Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 40s, and they come knocking on your door and they ask you, are you harboring any Jews? And you have Jews in your home. What do you do? What do you do in that scenario? Yeah. Do you lie to them and sin, or do you say,
actually,
yes, I do, and you turn these people up to go to their deaths?
And you're probably in trouble too.
Yeah.
So
so those
definitely
those types of situations, while they're often used to justify these white lies that we're talking about, they're not even in the same ballpark of ethics of what we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. And I think, the Nazi Germany one I've heard several times, and I don't honestly know what I would do in that kind of situation. I don't think any of us would, because even stressful situations like that, people tend to act differently than they normally would.
Look at
too.
Peter. Peter did that.
Yeah.
Self-preservation kicked in, and I'm not that, and it was wrong. I'm not saying Peter was a good example there, but he's a human and he was an apostle and he messed up. And it again, I think we've said it umpteen time. I've used that last podcast too. Umpteen time.
That's the word of the week.
That's the word of the week. Umpteen. It's any teen you want to use. That we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect, and we can say that I'm trying my best, but there are going to be times where I know for a fact I have lied. I have. And then there are times I'm like, man, why did I do that? I should have just said. And there have been times where I've corrected it with the person because I had the opportunity to. But it's not okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that at all, but
I think the motive does generally matter too, and also like the frequency. Like if you're telling like little white lies pretty often, where
then
maybe you don't have a reputation for it, but it is
it's part of your life.
somewhat, where you just do it and don't think about it so much. I think that that can be a little bit of something to think about.
Well, I think in that definition or description that you were talking about, can you reread that real quick?
The first part of that,
Yeah.
I put that white lies protect people's feelings, small lies are harmless, and convenience justifies a slight lie.
Yeah. Okay. What was the second part of that? Then?
Second part, truth and love builds relationships, small lies erode integrity.
That's what I wanted to hit on. Because if you are constantly telling little white lies, that's slowly going to desensitize your conscience to it, and it's going to escalate from there.
Well, and then people aren't going to. They're going to assume the worst of you, and it's like, okay, I can't believe this either. It's like, so you're not only, to your point, hurting yourself, you're hurting your reputation with other people,
and possibly sometimes in those situations you may be prompted to lie in what you think would be sparing another person's feelings, but in reality telling them the truth would be more beneficial.
Like Honest Abe.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I remember in high school I had a scenario like that where a friend came to me, asked me a question, and I've got a policy with people: don't ask me a question unless you want like what I actually think about it.
Noted.
Yep.
But I gave them an honest answer, and they didn't like the answer, and they said, "Wow, I thought you were my friend." And I said, I am. That's why I told you the truth about this. And it's like, but a lot of people think in those types of scenarios we should just lie, pacify the person, and then just move on and forget about it.
It's like when some people come and tell you something that they've done or how they're processing it, and there've been times where I've thought, man, that's legit crazy, but sometimes I tell them that. But other times you're like, do I really have to?
In that exact language?
Do you really want me to be honest here? So, but yeah.
There's something you keep going. I'm trying to find a proverb that says basically what Ren was talking about. Oh, Proverbs 27:6. Faithful are the wounds of a friend.
Oh,
profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Like, that's exactly what you're talking about right there. A friend should be honest, especially in that situation. I think so this goes around to like, what about like surprise parties and things you're being deceptive about and things like that? Where does that fall? Or Santa Claus, or hey, this guy's gonna come bring you presents down the chimney. Yeah, I mean it ain't happening,
right?
But
metaphor.
What's
They're metaphors?
Okay.
Metaphors are just fancy lies.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's figurative language. We might be taking a turn here, and being a little bit ironic about what our topic is here. If we continue. I was just going to bring up that this can be a slippery slope, but I do think, this is just my opinion, I think like your heart in things has a role to play as well. So, we've talked a lot about 1 John chapter 1 and walking in the light. There's a difference in slipping up every once in a while versus, again, that kind of like reputation and you being desensitized to telling lies. But I think most people tell lies, again, to, for convenience, to save face, spare people's feelings. And it's not really, I think we just really need to evaluate why we are not telling the truth. But even more important than that, I think instead of focusing on what we can, like, quote, get away with or what's like seemingly less significant, in this example, we should just strive to tell the truth as often as we possibly can. So I don't think that we should miss that point. instead of like thinking, okay, well, can I get away with this?
Yeah.
Is this like really that big of a deal? Instead, we should just try to tell the truth and focus on those good fruits and, you know, the things that we were thinking about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I think in a lot of situations, even with like the surprise party type of a situation, my opinion is there's probably a way to go about it to where you wouldn't put yourself in a situation where you have to lie.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a way to organize it, orchestrate it,
Yeah.
get the person involved where you're not deceiving the person.
Yes, but I
Yeah.
think there are challenges sometimes when, especially when you're doing it at a venue that the person's like, "Why are we going here?"
Yeah.
It makes no sense, and it's I don't, and I'm not
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
you just
You could still
But-
probably find something
yeah.
truthful to say.
I think there's ways. You're probably right. I
Yeah.
just that's always been something. It's like, you know, and when you play a joke on somebody, when you're
Yeah.
like I would tell you, "Hey, Ren, I did this," and you're like, "Really?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Nope, I didn't.
Yeah.
It was a joke." Or I eventually tell you,
Right.
"Was I lying?" Because
Yeah.
I'm like, lying to me is trying to purposely deceive someone for some
Yeah. Personal gain. or,
reason
yeah,
or something or other.
Yeah.
That to me. So I'm like, am I sinning when I like tell you
a surprise party. Oh, a
no,
joke.
a joke, like
Oh, yeah,
just joking
yeah.
around, like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
ran into your car outside," and you're
Yeah.
like, "What?" And I'm like, "No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I lied. I mean, I
Yeah.
did because I didn't.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that does that fall in
Yeah.
the category of
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I don't know.
I don't know
just
either.
Curious,
I don't
so-
know either.
because I'm
Because
not.
I make a lot of jokes like that.
I do
Me
too.
too.
yeah.
Yeah, as you were saying, I'm like, oh man, I'm toast.
So it's like I don't know. I don't think so. I personally don't think so, and I'm not saying it because I do that. but
Well, and maybe
I'm
that
not-
goes back to what Robbie was talking about with the intent in the
Yeah.
heart. It's not malicious.
I'm
in
not trying to
nature.
benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I make jokes like that all the time. I mean, I do it so many times I can't even remember a lot of specific examples.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Like, you get to Judgment Day and you're up there, and he's like, "You remember this one time when you played a joke on your wife?" And
Yeah.
I would be thinking, which time?
I think, but if I kept with that argument and I didn't, and I didn't come clean, I think that's where it becomes I'm doing it to be deceptive, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm straining the gnat and swallowing the camel here, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
All right. Well, shall we go on?
Stepping on some toes. I know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
my own self
Yeah.
included. So
Yeah, all three. So anyway,
I only have 2 feet.
what?
All three of us.
I got it. It was a
Yeah.
joke. Okay, guys.
It just wasn't that funny. I guess.
Yeah, and then normally it's not unless I'm lying in it. So
Yeah, you're only funny when you're lying.
when I'm lying. Anyway, go on.
All right. Well, let's go on to gossip if you guys are good
Yeah.
with that.
Let's move
Oh,
on to a
yeah.
different one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So gossip's another one that seems to happen very frequently and it gets downplayed a lot. But even though this one's kind of seen as a lesser sin, I personally think that you have to be very careful about this one, or it can become
Yeah.
a real, poison on the church, I think.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like about other Christians and things.
And I don't think this was one that was submitted. It may have been, but part of the reason why I included this one as a quote unquote lesser sin is not because I think most people recognize the harm that it causes,
Mm-hmm.
but I think a lot of times people may gossip and they don't even realize that that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Because it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well,
I think slander has
yes.
slander to me has the definition of falsity. Gossip
Yeah.
can be truth.
It can be true or
Yeah,
false.
I didn't mean
And
it
I think,
wasn't, but
and I think too, it's the visibility of it. Gossip seems to be more so secretive, while slandering can be more
public. Yeah, I think gossip is, whether it's true or not,
Yeah.
ends up harming someone
Yeah,
in a way that. And that kind of goes where Paul says, "Do all things for edification, not for tearing down." I think I can tell, like if I'm proud of Ren for doing something, and I could tell Robbie, "Hey, Ren
Yeah.
really did this."
yeah,
I don't consider that gossip.
no,
Now, if I'm like, "Oh,
Well,
that's where I make my, and I don't know if that's the definition or not, but my delineation is where it ends up negatively affecting someone else.
As far as the definitions that I've seen, both just like the English definition, but also from the words that are used in Scripture, it seems to be the idea of spreading rumors, which rumors are typically false,
But yeah,
or spreading like intimate or private facts or information to other people that were meant to be private.
that if the other
Right.
person wanted them
Yes.
to know, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are not our business to share.
Yes.
And so there have been several times, especially like things, I know y'all know this, but gossip never happens in a school. So
It never happens in church either.
no, it doesn't happen there either. But hypothetically, if it did, there may have been, times where, the kids have, come to me asking me things, and I'm just like, look, if you want to know, you're going to have to
Yeah.
hear it from them, because it's not my business to tell. And even if it's something that is like quote unquote common knowledge, that's generally how I at least try to handle it.
Yeah.
Not perfectly,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, but
Well,
just I think it's a good rule of thumb to let people share their own business.
Yeah.
agreed, and I think there's also an aspect of listening to it. It's not
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
delivering piece. It's like there have been times where it's like a couple of phrases that come to mind is like, I know I promised I wouldn't tell anyone, but, and I'm like, well, then
Yeah,
I don't
that's where you
need I don't
just
need to
don't
know,
say it. Yeah.
or I don't need I don't know something about I don't need to give you all the details. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to know the
Yeah.
details. Matter of fact, I don't care.
Want to know any of it.
Yeah. So I think there's also the application of, well, I don't tell gossip, but boy,
Yeah.
I'm first to step up and
Yeah.
get my ear to
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
So
Actually, there was something that happened today that I guess could kind of apply. And by today, I mean,
Don't
it
start
was a Sunday.
gossiping on a podcast that's about gossip now.
No, I'm not. I'm just using
It
it
happened.
as an example. So, some of our like L2L events involve like more than one person. They're like group activities, and I'll just say that sometimes when people aren't around, whether this is true, just in a general sense, when people aren't there for Bible class and worship, or for X, Y, or Z activity, people start, kind of wondering why and speculating and things like that. So that was kind of like the nature of the conversation. I said, look, I know more than I can tell you, but there's, a legit reason of things that have been going on. It's not that, X person has just not been around because
Yeah.
they're trying to hurt anyone's feelings. And so that's usually and I told them specifically, like, I'm being vague for a reason here, but, just
Yeah.
so that you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that, that's different than like, I can't believe that, so-and-so's not been here.
Yeah.
And so, but I think if we do enter, to Ryan's point, not only if it's spoken, but if we're kind of like entertaining and being within the same circles that are spreading other people's business, even if you're not like saying anything bad about them, it can still be something that could be hurtful for them. Sometimes we don't know the effect that things are going to have.
Yeah.
So,
And there was a verse in Proverbs 18 and verse 8, kind of backing up to what Ryan was talking about. He says, the words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. But it is that idea of a lot of people, like,
tell me,
gossiping is basically their hobby.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they like to do.
Yeah.
They like to get together with their friends and talk about who did what and who said what and all of these other things, when you should just leave it alone. Or they heard this from somebody who heard this from somebody else about this person did that or said that. And it's like, okay, let's just keep our mouths shut and talk about the weather.
we, off air,
boring.
off air, we were talking.
Not going to send us to hell. So,
Before before the podcast started, we were talking about like my family's group text and how my grandma had this quote, like, we were talking awful. That's basically what she was talking about there. But Grandma always had some like good quotes.
Yeah.
So,
And this doesn't mean that I wouldn't say that this doesn't mean that in no circumstance can actions ever be discussed.
Yeah.
But it has to be following, I guess, kind of what was talked about earlier. Is it private information? Is it a rumor? Is it going to bring harm to this person? Or meeting those various criteria of whether or not we should or should not or can or cannot discuss it.
I think there are times where you said actions can't be discussed. I think if there warrants a warning to someone,
Yeah.
like, hey, you might want to be a little cautious here. So and so, it has a whatever history here.
Yeah.
Don't need to spell out
need
everything. But I think sometimes we have a responsibility to do that. But again, that is protecting this person, and I'm not doing it to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you go put it in the paper either. It's just, I don't know. I think there are times that it's okay, and other times that going back to your intent. A lot of times it's their hobby. Other times we do it because we just want them to look bad sometimes. So
right.
And I think too, sometimes going to what you were talking about, sometimes people are looking for advice on how to handle a certain situation. And depending on the circumstance, I mean, obviously what Jesus said in Matthew 18 or in Matthew 5 should always be paramount, where we go when we talk to the individual that is directly involved. And obviously he's talking about sin, but I think that just practically speaking, that's the best way to handle any sort of conflict, whether it's related to sin or not. The best way to do it is to always just go and talk to the person directly. And there have been times where I've said something from the pulpit and somebody maybe misunderstood what I was saying, or I didn't say it clearly enough, and it gave somebody the wrong impression. But then that person came and talked to me. And I could clarify what I meant, and we could talk about it. And it's like, that's what we need to be doing. We always need to be going directly to each other instead of
at lunch,
somebody having that misunderstanding and then being like, well, Ren said da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which I'm sure has happened. But we ought to always go directly to the person if there's ever any misunderstanding or ever any conflict of what we're talking about here. But there are times, as I was talking about, where in dealing with those situations, maybe you're seeking advice on how to handle or how to approach something. Even then, going back to what Robbie was talking about, being very, very careful to not reveal details. And again, keeping it in line with all of these things that we've already been talking about. And I think that is, a lot of times I think that's where people really struggle, is when they do need help or advice. And people that I've talked about or talked with, not about, that's kind of the opposite of what we're discussing here. But talk, what we are talking about here is a lot of times people who are looking for advice are often very careful or conscious that they don't slip into gossiping about a certain person or a circumstance. And that's how we should be. We should really try, because I fear that a lot of Christians are not going to make it to heaven because of this particular sin, because it's so easy to slip into. It's so easy, I think, sometimes to misdiagnose, and it's so easy to sweep under the rug and not do anything about. And so we just have to be very careful.
Yeah,
very
that's
careful.
why I said it can spread like a wildfire and be a poison within
Yeah.
the church if we're not careful. So Are y'all good if we move on to
Yeah,
gluttony?
yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, that was a good
no,
discussion
not-
too.
We can't talk about gluttony. Sorry,
So-
not happening.
Well,
Thanksgiving's canceled.
I think that is one that is definitely considered like a minor one, just
Yeah.
because I think most people feel like it's not an issue, or even most people are probably unaware that it's sinful
Yeah.
to do it.
Well, in people's defense, I guess the New Testament does not talk about it.
Doesn't
very
use it
much.
like that
Yeah.
word specifically, but
Is gluttonous used? I thought glutton.
Gluttons is used in Titus 1.
But yeah, also like even it's ironic today that most people don't take this as seriously
Mhm.
because America is
Yes.
kind of
One of the
compared to I
fattest
would say
nations
the
on
ancient
earth.
Hebrews is
Yeah.
probably America's probably a little more gluttonous than
Yeah.
they were.
Yeah.
So if he was warning, the first century to be careful of it, I wonder what he would say.
Yeah.
Are
here.
buffets sinful?
They can be.
I used to love me
Apparently.
some Golden Corral though. I was in high school, so
So where's the line?
Well, that's
Is
what
it
we're-
different for people?
Well, but as I understand gluttony, it's indulging in an excess of food or drink. And so I would say that is different from person to person, because like what my body needs, and we may talk about this some more. This is something that I think about with myself, about being mindful of, because I like to eat.
I do too.
I really
Yeah.
like to eat. And so I don't want to cross in. I mean, how stupid of a sin is this? I mean, really, when you think about it, to slip into something like this, and I'm not saying like that everybody who is overweight is necessarily guilty of this, because
Right.
there's a lot of things that come into play when
Sure.
it comes to weight. But for me personally, this would be a dumb thing to fall into. And I would say it is different for every person, because what my body needs to function is vastly different than what my wife needs for her body to function. Because I'm 6'2", 220 pounds, and she's not that. So my body needs more, but I can still overindulge. And that's really what gluttony is. It's overindulgence in various things, whether it be food or beverages. And I think there's a lot of like sub issues that come along with this, of self-control and
Yeah.
stewardship, even both financially, but also stewardship of our bodies, like we see in 1 Corinthians.
Yep.
And even I think another part of this is laziness, because that's what in Titus chapter 1, that's what Paul talks about, how one of the Cretans, one of their own, said that they are
Gluttons.
lazy gluttons, or something, whatever the
Mhm.
exact phraseology was there. So there's a lot of other issues that are kind of, I think, attached to this one, outside of just simply eating too much.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to bring up that this, like many things, I think when it's done in excess, it generally shows a lack of self-control, and we could go down the rabbit hole of alcohol and some of the
Pizza.
other ones, which
Pizza.
Pizza is
Pizza.
mine.
Yeah.
One
yeah,
of mine.
I do love me some
One of
pizzas.
mine.
I would say mine would probably be cheese
Bojangles.
dip and
Oh.
Bojangles. That too. So, inside joke.
Is it an inside
It's
joke? Anybody
everybody
that
knows.
you-
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's an outside joke.
it's an outside joke too. So, but yeah, those two
Yeah.
things for
I
sure.
mean,
I
But
don't
it's
overeat-
also, it's
I don't
not,
overeat
it's not
Bojangles,
wrong to enjoy the food or whatever it is. The issue is when you overindulge.
Yeah, and I shouldn't be like drinking it or anything.
So-
even though
Drinking Bojangles?
that definitely that I was talking about cheese dip again.
Oh, yeah.
Bojangles, I don't have we live up here and the closest one's
Yeah.
like an hour away. So like I definitely don't most of the year don't even get
Yeah.
to eat it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, is it gluttonous like if I like go home and eat it like 2 meals a day? Quite possibly, but I'm not like I don't know. I don't know how to think about that because
Yeah.
I'm just eating it for one meal.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't-
not
Yeah,
like
well,
I
I don't
wouldn't go
even
there
think-
and eat like
I don't even think
3
if you
combos.
I don't think if you eat it 3 times a day that it's gluttony either.
Well, I think about like, what are they called? Are they called mukbangs? Is that what that is on the on
look at me.
online where they have like they would have a table like this and it's just filled with food and they film themselves just eating
Oh, I've never heard of
all
such.
that.
Oh,
And it's
To the point of where you're just like gonna throw up,
Yeah.
or you're just like in
talking
a
about those
coma.
videos.
Well, I mean, is that where?
Are you saying like where's the line?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is that? I mean, overindulgence. I can have an extra piece of pizza, but have I reached gluttony? Because it's like, man, I could do without that, but
Yeah.
I'm also not making myself
Over-
sick doing it.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those
You're
things.
hosting this podcast too. Why do I have to be the one that
Well,
answers it?
anyway, I think about Thanksgiving is a big one because
Yeah.
everybody talks about, oh, I'm gonna eat till I pass out, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, I do sometimes. I mean, I don't literally
Yeah.
pass out, but
Yeah.
it's like
But you
I
get
am on the
lethargic.
couch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of that's the L-tryptophan in the turkey. I get that
Yeah.
from lethargy, but your body does digest and use oxygen to
Yeah.
do so. For those of you who are in school, sometimes after lunch you get more tired, or even
Yeah.
at the office,
Yeah.
because your body is digesting. But I've always thought that gluttony is, it's not talked about.
Mhm.
To your point, it's not. It's covered a little bit in the New Testament, but it's like I don't know where that line is and
Yeah.
how to tell someone, are you being a glutton or not?
Well, I think in part, at least, it comes back to some of the things we've talked about of self-control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you in eating whatever or drinking whatever? Are you exercise? Are you the one that's in control, or is the food controlling you?
Mm-hmm.
Like where you are compulsively eating it because it's like you feel like you don't have any other choice. Like you've got to be eating this.
Well, yeah.
I think, yeah, sweets are like kind of another thing that at least when I was in high school, maybe be in this conversation. Not that I would have like a whole meal, but like, you're home on
yeah.
spring. Turkeys in St. Charles.
Oh, yeah.
Like I could totally, like within a day, eat like a few of them, but I haven't yet. So I guess I haven't gone full glutton. But like there've been a couple days I've had 2, maybe 3.
Yeah.
But that's
How
probably
big are they?
I don't know,
they're
like
they're
that.
solid. They're probably about like that. But
And you
they're
think
kind of tall.
And 3 is gluttony? Wow. Interesting.
I mean, no, I'm just saying that's that's as many as like I ate without feeling like my wife would say something.
Oh, okay.
So, or that I could like get away with without her going like, "What happened to all these cookies?" So, anyway,
I do think it is very hard to define a specific line, though.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just gotta be careful, I
just,
guess.
we
Yeah.
just muddied the water, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it goes into like the passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 where it talks about how our bodies are the temple of God and therefore we should glorify God in our bodies. I do think people kind of take that sometimes to an extreme that I'm not sure in context it was meant to be taken to. But in the context, he is making the point. Don't use your body for sinful things. Use it in a way that would bring glory to God. And so I do think that there is a principle there of being a steward of what God has blessed you with, both financially, but also even physically, and taking care of yourself. Because the thing is if you fall into this gluttonous, lazy type of lifestyle, it's going to impact your ability to serve God.
Yeah. That's something you said there about lazy triggered something that I was going to bring up in the gossip aspect, is where Paul talks about people that don't work, they become busybodies.
Yeah.
And that word is talking about meddling in other people's affairs.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that it's like, I think with gluttony, are you being productive or are you not being
Yeah.
productive?
Yeah.
Are you,
Yeah.
I think to your point, as all I'm doing is eating Cheetos all day, or am
Right.
I out
Well, and that
doing
reminds me,
good works?
I remember seeing a clip of a podcast with this lady who was an ultra runner, and the person that was interviewing her said, "So what do you eat?" She was like, candy and nachos. Like, that's all she ate was just candy
Mm-hmm.
because it was, I guess, easily digestible carbs and her body
Interesting.
could use it. But she was using that. She wasn't just laying around on the couch
Yeah.
gorging herself on Snickers
She was
bars
burning
or
the
something.
calories. Yeah.
She was actually using it for a purpose in a
Mhm.
way.
Right. I was thinking of something a second ago before you gave that analogy, but I think it may be gone. So, anything else you guys had?
Nah.
So become an ultra marathon runner, and
You
then
can
you
eat
can
all
eat
you
whatever you want.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on that one.
Yeah, I
So-
think I will too.
I will say there's something to that. Like an app that I used in the past, like if I run or lift or walk and Garmin is giving
Yeah.
me X number of calories, the app says, "Hey, you've burned extra
Yeah.
calories. You can have bonus."
Yeah.
So I think there is something
Well,
something
and that's
to
what I was,
that.
what
but-
I was talking about, how it's different for each person. Because I know, like for me, which I'm not tracking calories right now, but when I've done it in the past, for me to lose weight, I can eat like, I think it's 2,500 calories, something like that. But for other people,
Yeah.
like I know for Chloe, she has to eat like 15 or 1,800
I
calories.
have to eat like 17, 18.
Yeah.
But I think also age comes into play. My
Yeah.
metabolism isn't like
Metabolism,
Yeah.
and then activity level, all of those things, which I think is in part one of the reasons why it might be hard to put a
just- yeah.
clear line on
Agreed.
this particular one. But I do think maybe we need to hit on it more. The laziness, I think, is definitely a
Part of
core
it, yeah.
aspect of gluttony too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, guess you called this one right before this one was like, but this one may be a two-parter. Me and Ryan both looked at him like he was crazy, but sure enough,
I mean, it probably could be, but
Yeah.
we don't have to make it one.
yeah. Well, like we said earlier, if you have some other lesser sins that you'd like us to take a look at and muddy the water on, then feel free to reach out to us. But as for these lesser sins, white lies, gossip, and gluttony, you can consider this the
Conclusion of the matter.